welcome to another episode of the MacGuffin Podcast, the movie review podcast that dreams are made of. With me again is Keith Foster from San Diego, California.
And you are Cassidy Robinson, and you are recording from an undisclosed location in the Rocky Mountains.
And today we're going to be reviewing the Netflix original film, You Are So Not Invited to My Bat Mitzvah. And for the streaming homework, we're going to be doing the movie that you decided. That is 2018's Game Night.
Yes.
One of the last, blockbuster comedies I can remember.
You're not wrong, and we might get into that a little bit in the review, but yeah, it is not a great time for comedies in theaters. I think it's no secret a big part of that is streaming, and historically comedies are cheaper to film, and so it makes a certain amount of sense that instead of going through the marketing budget for something that might not recoup its losses, they just get released straight to streaming now.
As we will discuss when we're also talking about You're So Not Invited to My Bat Mitzvah.
Yeah.
Which is Adam Sandler affiliated through Happy Madison. We'll get through all of that, but first, what's up with those aliens? What do you think?
From Mexico? Are you talking about the one from, of all the fucking crazy alien shit that has been declassified and...
declassified.
No, I mean, dude, when you have fucking people from the Air Force, testifying in front of Congress that they've seen some weird shit, which, that's all that it really amounts to is, yeah, I've seen some weird shit. But in this case, it's like it's fucking paper mache, bro. Like, that's not a real alien. I want to believe I am
right.
I am the Fox Mulder in this situation, and I see that and I'm like, nah, that's a kid's high school project. Like, we made that in high school.
Yeah, they're like 2.5 feet, and they look like they're carved out of stone. They're supposed to be petrified. I just think it's funny that every bit of evidence that does or doesn't come out, it's like first they have some guy in front of Congress talking about how he's seen some weird stuff and
some shit.
Yeah, and everybody's like, did you though? And then now we have this. We have these weird petrified alien-looking stone creatures out of Mexico, and everyone's like, nah.
We're all fucked, though. Like, if they see Alien, if they see, all of the ways that extraterrestrials have been portrayed throughout media for the last, since media has existed, no, we're fucked. We're all canceled. Earth is canceled.
That has to be the poster quote for, the next big alien blockbuster. Earth is canceled.
Earth is canceled. Let's fucking pitch it, bro. Okay.
They're always going to have Close Encounters of the Third Kind and Arrival if they want positive alien representation.
I guess. That's my point, is I think it's coming from a place of ignorance and maybe a little bit of distraction, but more just isn't this shit wild? I absolutely believe that we are not the only living creatures in the solar system within the universe, because that is insane. The idea that we're the only life in all of creation is fundamentally insane. But I don't necessarily believe that they have visited Earth, because then we're getting into, some scientific problems.
Yeah. Well, food for thought. All right. From that, let's go ahead and...
Hey, you started this show hot.
I know. I was looking for a hot take, and you gave me your thesis on life on other planets. Let's go ahead and talk about You Are So Not Invited to My Bat Mitzvah. I'll go ahead and sum this up. So, You Are So Not Invited to My Bat Mitzvah, rolls off the tongue, is directed by Sammy Cohen and written by Allison Peck and Fiona Rosenblum. And it stars Adam Sandler as Danny Friedman, Adina Menzel as his wife. Coming back is the role of his wife after Uncut Gems. His actual wife is in the movie as well, playing their daughter's best friend's mother, Jackie Sandler. And the movie stars Sadie Sandler and Sonny Sandler as Stacy and Ronnie, the preteen girls, who are more sort of the star players of this movie. Stacy and her best friend Lydia are headed into their bar mitzvahs, and they're learning the Torah. But more importantly, they're planning their bar mitzvah parties that they've been planning their whole lives. And they have big expectations over who's going to have the better party and what these parties are supposed to entail, including, disco music and Twizzler machines and, lights and celebrities. I mean, I think most people pretty much get the idea of what a traditional bat mitzvah is.
Yeah.
This movie is less interested in the actual religious ceremonial aspect of it, insofar as the main character is interested in it, which is just to get it over with, so she can get to what she really wants to do, which is have this huge, grand, celebratory party and sort of flex on her friends.
Well, I mean, that is kind of her arc, right? Like, that is the transition from childhood to adulthood, is learning what is, and that's sort of what this movie is about, is learning what is actually important within this ceremony versus the preconceived notions you have of it. Like, they have these grand ideas for what the party is, but they don't, the main characters don't really have any thought of anything beyond that at the start.
Right. And so they're planning things together, and they're sort of trading notes, and things kind of get wrecked when a boy enters the picture. One of them gets embarrassed by the other, and they start sort of fighting over who's going to get the attention of this would-be crush. And this leads to this greater escalation of trying to embarrass and ruin the other person's bat mitzvah that's coming up.
It becomes kind of this competition. We see these best friends for life who are sort of separated by the situation. Yeah.
So Sonny Sandler as Stacy and Samantha Lorraine as Lydia are essentially the leads. They have, a sort of friend group that they share, even though at the beginning of the movie they're sort of fractured. And their female rabbi that they're attending school, the Torah school for, played by comedian Sarah Sherman.
Yeah, another SNL alum.
Yes. she's bringing back big Miss Lippy energy here. And
I love Sarah Sherman, by the way. Like, she's one of my favorites on SNL at the moment. And I appreciate that they let her role be a little more grounded than Miss Lippy.
Sure.
But yeah, she's sort of an oddball, kooky.
She's kind of a hippie, kind of a hipster. She's trying to be cool with the kids and get into their lingo and play along to get along, and while at the same time knowing how to sort of nudge them in the right direction, and ever so vaguely queer coded.
Do you think?
A little bit, yeah. Her and her the other guy who plays guitar. They have that kind of like theater camp counselor energy.
I think she's very funny. I like her a lot.
But, I do too, and she's probably my favorite thing in this movie. This does skew a lot younger than I realized. Starting it, and it's way less of an Adam Sandler movie. I mean, his fingerprints are all over it, and it kind of has his sensibility, but it feels like sort of Sandler Jr.
Yeah, but that also kind of makes sense given the subject matter, given the cast.
Right.
It is a family affair, and so like all of that makes sense. But I agree with you, and I don't know if that's something that I necessarily judge the movie for or actually appreciate about it. Because
I'm kind of half and half on it. I think there are times, like when it comes to their friendship, the core story of the movie, her arc, Sandler's daughter as the lead, her arc in the movie and what she learns, and some of the more true to life parts of the coming of age thing, like when she tries to get attention from the boy, she invites a bunch of friends over to do like basically like a full set of like photographs that she just so happens to have on her phone when she accidentally slides it to him so that he'll take a look. Some of the stuff at the Torah school is very funny.
What's interesting though is like typically when we think of coming of age stories, right? It's generally more of high school, teenager becoming an adult, right? Like it's usually somebody on the cusp of graduation or just entering high school or just entering college. And you don't get a lot of, there is a whole transitionary period sort of before that.
Awkward middle school years.
Other than something like, say, My Girl, I can't think of a lot of movies that try to cover that ground in a way that's not pandering, right?
The movie that came to my mind the most while watching this, both in contrast and in similarity, is the movie 8th Grade by Bo Burnham.
Which I haven't seen, but yes.
Which that movie takes this, razor sharp, deeply personal, deeply real feeling of the subject matter. Also a person of a very different socioeconomic situation than the people in this movie who are, science fictionally rich.
Yeah. I mean, that is a whole other thing we can talk about. But the economics of this movie are wild because they are not coming from a middle class family. They are coming from fucking Adam Sandler's actual his
Right.
actual fucking tax status.
Even when Judd Apatow is doing the everyman family thing, and he would still be in like the easily over $1 million plus a year.
Yeah.
This makes that look tiny in comparison. I mean, these are like the lives of literal celebrities.
Yes. Yeah. And I do agree with you in that way. It is, I think it's out of touch of what it wants to be, which it does want to be a sort of broader, it wants to be a family film that anyone can sit down and appreciate. And I think families can sit down and have fun with it, but not necessarily relate to it.
I think on a broad scale, yes. I think it's going to be, these experiences are not going to look like a lot of other people's.
But what I mean by that is I think they want it to appeal to that broad scale. I think there's a little bit of naivety
sure,
when it comes to that.
I think it could even be a little bit more self-aware than that. I think there could be something more like a fantasy wish fulfillment, like playing up. I mean, I understand that these people, the Sandlers and their friends and stuff like that, this is probably pretty close to the type of life they can live. But even then, the way the movie's lit and shot, there's something, specifically like West Coast California high life kind of thing.
No, I agree with you. I don't necessarily think that was intentional.
Maybe,
but
maybe not. I think when you're looking at like the parties, like the actual Bat Mitzvah parties, which what they're seeing in their mind versus what it's really like is virtually identical. I mean, plus or minus a few details, like what celebrities they're able to get to come.
I think that, okay, so that brings up kind of an interesting point to me. I felt like that was kind of the point of the movie, was, it's this idea that the Bat Mitzvah is, yes, it's supposed to be a party, but throughout there, there's so many references of like Adam Sandler and Idina Menzel, and they're like, when we had our party, it was just us hanging out in grandma's basement.
Sure, yeah.
And I thought that was kind of where this movie was going. I thought that was going to be kind of the point, is it's not about the big party. It's about all the other stuff. And then the big party, the party is just to let all of that go. It is to, we've done it, we've made this transition and let's celebrate it. And so in that sense, I felt like the movie, it kind of betrays itself a little bit because of that. Like,
yeah,
I felt like the core of this movie is about the simplification of that, the true meaning of Christmas, if you will, for a bad metaphor. But like, the idea is it's not all about the big party. It's about the actual act.
Right, and it's about what happens after, and who you leave behind, and who, what you've learned along the way, and all of those tropes that we've seen in a number of coming of age movies. So, and I think for the most part, it's well-meaning and pleasant, and often funny. Where the movie kind of falls apart for me is it's so over-directed, and it's so highly produced. Like everything in this film looks like a music video or a commercial. There's a music sting about every 15 seconds in this movie. The movie seems desperate to try and hold somebody's attention, so they either move away from a scene too quick before it can really develop, or they just have another like music montage or something like that. Or they'll they'll lean on a bit maybe, but I'd actually prefer, if they're gonna do that, to just lean on bits and stuff it full of comedy.
Sure.
But what they do instead is they just kind of create this Beverly Hills paradise fantasy land that's about as real as Barbie World from the Barbie movie earlier in the year.
It almost starts to feel like a little bit like reality TV, like the
right,
way...
My Super Sweet 16,
exactly,
like that kind of stuff.
Like the sort of wish fulfillment fantasy elements of it.
And if there had been some sort of satire there, you could get away with doing that.
Oh, but no, this is not what this movie is about. It is not ironic at all.
No, that's why I'm saying it just sort of selling this lifestyle as something that's aspirational, while at the same time trying to stuff in an emotional story wherever it can in between these overbearing aesthetics.
I honestly feel like this movie just feels so sort of out of touch with everything that's real right now, that if this had come out 20 years ago, I could have bought it a little bit more. But something like this coming out now, it just doesn't feel
authentic,
like a genuine experience. And that isn't to say that I feel like everybody's turning in a good performance. I feel like the movie's heart is in the right place. It just feels out of touch.
Yeah, I mean, largely that's how I felt too. I don't even have that much moral objection to the choices, just insofar that the choices themselves are distracting from the story.
Yes. Yeah.
Like if you wanted to make a movie about rich Beverly Hills teenagers, Clueless is one of my favorite movies of all time, and that
yeah.
But that movie is aware that that's the world that these people come from and who they are, and their superficiality is part of what they're learning about.
Yes, and it is just sort of soaked into the movie, whereas this movie feels unaware of its privilege and status and all of those things. Like, that's what I'm saying. Like, I think if this had come out 20 years ago, it wouldn't feel so fake. But because it is now, and just the way it portrays things as reality, it's only reality for a small margin of people.
Right. So, I'm well aware that I'm not the intended audience for this movie, and became increasingly aware as I was watching it that this is not only a family movie, but this is really for tweens. And for that, it is better than most.
And that was kind of something I was trying to say earlier, was like, I think the fact that it is skewed a little younger, and it is, you know what I mean? It's not graduating high school. It's not graduating college. It is, a younger a younger age turning to their teenage years, essentially.
Right. A different kind of arc than we normally get.
Yeah, exactly. Like, it does skew younger, and I kind of appreciated that, because the movie doesn't play it younger.
Yeah, and I like that it is distinctly a young girl's experience. You know,
Yeah,
her
exactly.
her insecurities, her first crush, you know, the complications of having a friend from childhood into your middle school years, and how that can, you know, become fraught with different cultural status things.
And I think honestly, I think that's where a lot of the best comedy comes from.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's like these moments where she's trying to talk to the boy she has a crush on, and he's just like, you know, beating the shit out of somebody with a Nerf baton.
Right.
You know, and he's such like the male love interest is sort of so shallowly written that I enjoyed all of that a lot.
Yeah, and you know, the little bits that we do get with the adult cast, you know, Adina Menzel and Adam Sandler,
Yeah.
Sandler's real life wife as her daughter's best friend's mother, and Luis Guzman kind of shows up at the end. The DJ Shmuley character, all of the people, the teachers at the school, and the rabbi, all of that I really like. Of course, I'm going to gravitate towards that because I'm an adult and I'm, you know, trying to find something to tether me onto. But
well, I also think though that the kids are
the kids
pretty,
are good.
you know,
Yeah.
they're good actors in their own right. Like the material skews a little young, but they do a good job. Like you know, the two leads, Adam Sandler's daughter Sadie Sandler and Samantha Lorraine, like they sell it. There's no complaints there, and their friend group is solid. And
I wish the movie had as much confidence in them as we can see.
Yeah, because it does tend to like cut away to a joke or cut away to the adult group to like it almost feels like the movie's reassuring you that like, yes, Adam Sandler's involved in this.
Mm. And I would have liked to see more scenes of just the kids being kids together.
I agree with that.
But you know, like I said, it did kind of remind me of sort of a Bizarro World version of Eighth Grade. And I'd say whatever it is that you liked about this movie, you're going to like in spades in Eighth Grade, because that movie is, you know, cuts all the frills into like the, you know, the awkward aspects of that age. And it's really, really character focused. I also thought a little bit about another movie, I think it came out this year, the animated film Being Red.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Was that this year?
I think so, early in the year.
I feel like that was last year. But yes, I can see that. It's a coming of age story. It's about it, you know, it's a slightly younger coming of age story. And I think that's also, you know, when we're talking about women's coming of age stories, it tends to be a little bit younger than men.
Yeah.
You know, because biologically that transition happens a little bit younger for women. And yeah, I can see that comparison.
And
I
there's
don't know where I was going with that.
There's a cultural aspect to it as well, and sort of living up to an adult standard, and you know, so it pairs well with that. I wouldn't say this is like a must see, but if you have kids or if you're vaguely curious about any of this, you could do a whole lot worse. It's pretty watchable.
Well, especially in the Sandler canon, right? Like, this isn't...
Sure, yeah.
It's not gross out. It's not so dumb that you feel ashamed for watching it. It is trying its hardest to appeal to a broad audience, and I appreciate that.
Yeah, and the cultural specific stuff does make the difference. And I think that there is a smarter movie happening here than even the movie knows sometimes.
I agree with that.
So I'm giving it a B-, but it's pretty solid.
No, I actually had the exact same grade in mind, B-. I think it's decent. It's not going to ruin your night, but it could be. There are a few things that could have elevated it, I think.
Okay. Before we get into our second review, the streaming homework game night, I did have a game I wanted to play with you.
Okay.
This is another sort of quizzy type thing came up with. This is it a remake or not?
Oh, Jesus. Okay.
Okay, so it's exactly like what it sounds like. I'll name the movie and the year. And then you will tell me, is it a remake or is it not?
Okay. All right.
Okay.
So let's see how this goes.
All right. We have The Client from 1994. Is it a remake?
I thought you had like posters and stuff. I've never even heard of this movie. The Client. Who's in it?
This was a Joel Schumacher movie, I want to say. It has Susan Sarandon and Tommy Lee Jones. It's a courtroom drama.
I'm going to say it's a remake.
And you would be wrong.
I've never even heard of this movie.
This was during that period when Schumacher was doing a lot of John Grisham adaptations.
Sure.
So this is...
Well, I mean...
A Time to Kill is the slightly bigger one.
I feel like the 90s in general were a big time for Grishams.
Yes.
I even remember a very funny joke on Third Rock from the Sun, so that's how dated this reference is, about how they were all like reading different Grishams.
Right. So this and A Time to Kill were both, I want to say both directed by Schumacher. Let me double check that just to be sure. Yeah. And they came out just a couple years apart, and they were both adapted Grisham novels by Akiva Goldsman, who also wrote the screenplays for Batman Forever and Batman and Robin.
Great.
As well as A Beautiful Mind, which is one of the worst screenplays to win Best Adapted Screenplay.
Sure.
Okay. Number 2. The Birdcage, 1996.
Oh, fuck. Okay. That is not a remake.
Starring Robin Williams and Nathan Lane.
Nathan Lane.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. You would be wrong. It is based...
What the fuck?
Is based... I'm actually surprised. As a theater kid, you should know this. This is based on the Italian film La Cage aux Folles, which was also a very popular Broadway play.
Okay, does that count as a remake? It's not a remake of The Birdcage.
Yes, it is.
All right.
It's a remake.
Sure. Also, you know what? I had to work fucking full-time at a gas station through college. I'm the worst theater kid to ever graduate theater school. Okay, next.
The next time I see Andrew, I'm going to tell him you didn't know what La Cage aux Folles is.
Have you? Okay, time out. Have you seen The Birdcage?
Yes.
I've almost assigned that to you 1,000 times. I'm curious how well it holds up, but
not very. Seen it in a while. I'm not the biggest fan, but it is beloved by many. I've never seen La Cage aux Folles, though, which I should go back and see.
God damn you. God damn you to hell.
Okay. Number 3. You Got Mail.
It's original, but it's sort of the same as Sleepless in Seattle, right? But it's its own. It's original.
It is a remake.
What the fuck?
It is a remake.
Doesn't make any sense.
Of a classic Hollywood film from 1940 called The Shop Around the Corner. Of course, the email aspect isn't there, but they were exchanging letters or something where they didn't know who each other were.
Okay, if we're just taking premises now as the terms for a remake,
it is they reference the movie in the movie.
Fuck you, sure, okay.
I thought this was an easy game. Okay. Number 4, The Wizard of Oz. Now, I'm talking about the 1939, not like Muppets Wizard of Oz or something like that, with Judy Garland. Yeah.
It's an adaptation of a book, but did they try to make a movie before the movie? I'm gonna say no. I'm gonna say it is not a remake.
The Wizard of Oz was first made as a movie in 1925.
No, this one I felt like I could have gone either way. Like this one is not as. I'm gonna say that you're ruling on You Got Mail and The Birdcage are bullshit. This one I will accept.
By saying that remakes that were definitely remakes or remakes?
Okay. This game is so fucked.
Okay. They don't always have the same title, but sometimes they do. Okay. Number 5, L.A. Confidential. From 1997. With
God damn it. Okay,
Kim Basinger.
So this one feels like it should be a remake because it feels so noir. It is definitely referencing an older Hollywood style of movie, but I'm gonna say it's not. I'm gonna say it's original. You
are correct. Yes.
Hell yeah, I got one. I'm on the
board. This was adapted from a book by James Ellroy, by Curtis Hanson. Famously was in Spinal Tap and a lot of stuff along those lines. As well as a famous director. Okay, number 6, The Man Who Knew Too Much, from 1956. This is the Alfred Hitchcock film.
Okay, so now did Hitchcock do a lot of remakes? I don't know that he did remakes. I'm gonna say it's not.
The Man Who Knew Too Much was remade by Alfred Hitchcock by remaking the movie he had already made in 1934. He made the movie twice. He made the movie once on his way up in England, and then he made it again with Jimmy Stewart in the 50s.
Okay, would you call Evil Dead 2 a remake?
No.
Fuck you! This is so skewed.
However,
how is that not a remake?
Because
okay, fine, sure.
It references the first one a little bit. I would call the American Funny Games a remake of the first one, which were both the same director. Okay. Number 7, Panic Room from 2002.
I'm so bad at this game.
It's Jodie Foster and Kristen Stewart, directed by David Fincher.
Okay, so I have to walk you through my thought process right now, right?
Okay.
Since this is a game and I'm bad at it, part of me is like, well, all of these have been remakes so far except one. So I feel like you're trying to trick me.
There's been 2 that have not been so far.
What was the... Wait, what was not?
The Client was not a remake.
Oh, okay. So my thought process is this, that the idea of a panic room... Did panic rooms exist? Like, how long have panic rooms been around as a cultural concept? So now I'm like, well, what if it's some fucking Spanish movie called, like Le Room de Panique, and I'm gonna say this is not a remake.
You are correct.
Fuck yeah.
Hasn't
that been my answer every time, though?
Yeah, kind of. So this was written by David Koepp, who also wrote Jurassic Park and a lot of other movies. Famous screenwriter. Okay, number 8, The Fast and the Furious from 2001.
No, this is not a remake. No, fuck you. This is not a remake.
Is that your final answer, or are you just cursing me out?
No, I'm pissed at this game. This game is bullshit. This is not a remake.
The original Fast and the Furious came out in 1954. It was produced by Roger Corman for the Corman Factory, AIP, American Independent.
Fuck you. Fuck you so hard.
Now, in this case, it really is just like the concept, kind of, and the title. It was a bit more of sort of a mix of stuff. The remake that Vin Diesel was in, which was originally conceived by David Ayer, and then rewritten by Rob Cohen. I think that's his name, right? Who ended up directing it.
I hate you, and I hate this game.
Okay, number 9. The Little Shop of Horrors.
That is a remake.
Yes.
Yeah, that one, I mean, Little Shop of Horrors has been around forever. That was a stage play. There was a movie before the Rick Moranis movie. That one, I'm not that bad of a theater nerd. That one's been around forever.
Yeah, you would have. You definitely should know that one. Also a Corman movie, the original, from 1960.
That I didn't know, but that's fun.
Okay, last but not least, Honey, I Shrunk the Kids.
Come on. No fucking way that's a remake. No, I'm going to say no.
You're going to say no?
Yeah.
And you would be correct.
Thank God.
However, this did have an interesting production. So the project was originally brought to Disney by Stuart Gordon, the horror director.
Yeah.
And Brian Usna, who also who had written a few Stuart Gordon movies and had directed the film Society, I think the same year that this movie came out.
I mean, all that's amazing.
And then eventually Gordon was taken off the project, replaced by Joe Johnston. But
I mean, that's no offense, Stuart Gordon. That's probably for the best.
Probably. It seems a little bit more to his sensibility, but you can kind of see where all of those people's sensibility ended up in that movie, since it's so. Mm-hmm. It's definitely in reference to like the Atomic Age movies from the 50s.
Yeah, and I think
or even like the what's his name? The Jason and the Argonauts guy. Clash of the Titans.
Yeah. Ray Harryhausen.
Yeah, like the Harryhausen era.
I just think it would have been a very different movie than what clearly they wanted.
Well, what Disney was comfortable doing.
Yeah.
So it ended up not doing as bad as you thought.
I guess the point is more shit's been remade than you realize.
Certainly. Okay. Let's go ahead and start talking about the streaming homework, the 2018 comedy game night. You assigned me to watch this. Have you seen it before? And after you explained if you have or haven't, you can go ahead and give us the rundown.
Yes, I had seen this once before. So this is about a group of friends that meet regularly for a game night. The two leads, played by Jason Bateman and Rachel McAdams, they met at this sort of trivia night, realizing that they're highly competitive people and that they have this in common. And they have this game night amongst their friends. When out of nowhere, Jason Bateman's older brother, played by Kyle Chandler, shows up wanting to participate. And he assures them that he has set up a game night that they are never going to forget. During all of this, they are trying to not invite their neighbor, who's played by Jesse Plemons. They end up going over to Kyle Chandler's house, and he gets actively kidnapped, and they are not sure what is part of the game and what is sort of real. And assuming it is all part of the game, they're sort of trying to solve this mystery of what happened to
his
Kyle
brother.
Chandler's character.
Yeah. And, I think the movie on a broad scale is about competitiveness, right? So we have the competitive nature between Jason Bateman and Rachel McAdams at the beginning, which ends up being their bond and their attraction to each other. They're even competitive over whose genes are the problem, why they can't conceive. And then there's a competition between brothers, between Kyle Chandler and Jason Bateman's characters. And
Jason Bateman and Rachel McAdams characters want to start having kids, and they're not sure why they haven't been able to conceive. And so early on, a doctor proposes that, sort of stress going on in Jason Bateman's life, possibly related to his competitiveness, it could be the cause of this problem.
Right. And during a drinking game, their friends Kevin and Michelle, played by Lamorne Morris and Kylie Bunbury, they're even sort of competitive over who had the better breakup when they were like briefly on a break.
Mm-hmm.
So I found that aspect to be kind of interesting, but basically this is like taking the premise of David Fincher's The Game and then making a comedy out of it.
Well, I think it's interesting that you bring up David Fincher, because a lot of what I find interesting about this movie is it is directed like a comedy, but it also isn't. Like there's a lot of this sort of moody tone, especially in relation to like the establishing shots, which sort of show the characters as game pieces, like in cars and stuff, and there's this sort of artificiality to it.
Yeah.
And just in general, tonally, it's sort of directed more as a genre piece, than as a broad comedy, which is one of the things that I think is interesting and fun about this movie.
Yeah, I think it's doing a little bit of style parody throughout the movie. I mean, I think the movie is always self-aware, and I think it's never taking the stakes of the plot all that serious, even as people start getting hurt or kidnapped or murdered or whatever. Like,
well, there's kind of this, it's kind of this thing throughout where the characters don't know how serious the situation is.
Yeah.
And so it's sort of directed as a thriller, but with characters who don't realize they're in a thriller.
Right. Yeah. So it's a dark comedy of sorts. I wouldn't say particularly dark, but it is, if on, like, let's say we were just talking about the movie off stream, if on the lightest side of something like this, you have the movie Date Night with Steve Carell and Tina Fey, kind of going through a similar-ish situation, although not nearly as involved or as funny or as well executed. And then on the darkest side of this spectrum, you would have something closer to like Ready or Not, where it's almost more of a splat stick, horror, supernatural horror with a tongue firmly planted in cheek, kind of.
But I think this movie is referencing different movies than something like Ready or Not, right? Like where Ready or Not is more overtly horror comedy, this is kind of a somewhere in between with like a thriller comedy. Like it's less dependent on kills and gore and tension, and more dependent on sort of concept and so I
character
think
dynamics.
So I think that's one of the interesting things about this movie is like there are horror comedies, there's not a lot of thriller comedies. And
well, there was. I mentioned Date Night, and that came at the during a string of a bunch of these. There were movies like that, the Killers, with Ashton Kutcher and what's her name, Katherine Heigl.
Mm-hmm.
there were a bunch of like kind of silly things like that, or maybe even a movie like Night and Day, which kind of is like a little bit more on the action comedy angle.
Well, and I feel like that's kind of where a lot of the movies you're referencing are, right? Like this tends to lean closer to the horror side of it. Like it's a little darker, it's a little less action driven. It just feels a little darker, even though content wise it's not. It is a pretty broad comedy. But it's I don't know, a lot of the movies you're referencing are more, I think, skewed action oriented, whereas this is skewed a little more psychological thriller oriented, but it's not quite satire, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I would say that it finds its way there. I mean, especially by the final third, and we're chasing down airplanes, and we got shootouts and chase scenes, and that kind of stuff.
That is my big criticism of the movie. Is I feel like the final third caters too much, and I feel like it would have been a lot. The final like sort of bad guy with Michael C. Hall and stuff sort of comes out of nowhere, and I feel like that's not really what the movie was about, and I feel like it kind of loses its nerve a little bit near the end.
This feels like one of those movies where on the DVD extras you would get like 3 alternate endings or something.
Yeah.
Because they could have gone a different way ever so slightly here or there, or just ended sooner.
Well, it
or ended
like,
more ambiguous or whatever.
Yeah, it feels like there was a studio note of like, well, we need to pay off so and XY and stuff, because the movie's sort of building to all these things until there's a sort of a plot twist, and then and then there's kind of like there was actually this other thing going on top of the plot twist. And I feel like it didn't need that.
Right. Well, that was, they were trying to, that's in part in reference to the game, because that's how that movie ends too. I mean, it's different but similar.
Sure.
And I think that they were sort of playing up to that, and then it kind of gets into hijinksy territory from time to time. Now, sometimes I think that works pretty well. There's a pretty great set piece towards the middle end of the second act or so, where they're juggling this Fabergé egg between them and their friends up and down these staircases. It's all done sort of in a fluid shot or a trick shot. And I liked the way that all looked. I liked a lot of the gotcha moments throughout the film.
This movie's stylish as hell. I mean, you can't discount the the set direction and the look of this movie. Like it looks exactly like it should. It's this sort of slick, sexy thing.
Yeah, a little like steely and sterile.
Very very David Fincher. It feels like they are purposely parodying Fincher. For a lot of it, but I think there's also like multiple references to an underground fight club and stuff. Like, it's not subtle that they are like, we want this to feel like Fincher.
Well, it's not subtle in that it's a movie in part about movies. It's a movie that's aware of movies, and it's making references both in dialogue and in the way that it's made. And this is directed by John Francis Daley, and his partner John Francis
Goldstein.
and Jonathan Goldstein, who also directed this year's Dungeons and Dragons movie. And both movies are very clever. You know, they're comedies that are sort of wearing their genre influences.
Yeah, their style sort of has this work for hire appeal, but with the like genre sensibilities of people who actually like understand what they're referencing.
Right, and also it's more than just to do the reference. Like it'd be easy just to make something look kind of steely blue-green and then put in some insert shots or whatever.
Or to throw in some Fight Club jokes, right? But it's...
Right, but to actually pay that off and to make those scenes look as good or feel as good as the movies that they're referencing.
Yeah. And I mean, that's another thing about this movie is it looks great. It is shot really well. It's very slick, very cinematic.
But of course, none of that would matter if it wasn't funny, which I think it most of the time is. It does lean a lot on sort of what these actors bring already, but that's fine. I mean,
Jason Bateman is maybe a little miscast. I feel like he's a little older than the rest of the friend group, and
sure, he's playing it down a little bit, but I didn't ever find him distracting in the role.
And he does have.
I mean, in reality, he's probably pretty close to the same age as Kyle Chandler, if not older, maybe even.
But both of them skew a little bit older than Rachel McAdams and Billy Magnuson, and and Lamone Morris. Like and
even Jesse Plemons.
Yeah, there's a slight. But the thing is, they all are working for it, and they're all making it work, right?
Right. Well, their costumes and everything is setting them at the same age.
Yeah.
Like what's not apparent by what we know about the actor is being done, behind the scenes, and I think
and
pretty
my
much
reservations with that are, I do think he has really good chemistry with Rachel McAdams, so you kind of forget about the age difference pretty quickly.
Yeah, no, I really like the cast. I like the chemistry between the cast. Jesse Plemons is the scene stealer in the movie.
Yeah.
He's one of those guys who can kind of do anything.
But this also, this movie sort of writes a perfect character for him as this sort of oddball outsider, similar to his Breaking Bad character, but in a less sociopathic way. He is definitely a highlight. I also think that Billy Magnuson stands out a lot to me. I want to see him in more stuff.
Yeah. Not all of these actors are crazy recognizable, except for the leads.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of them are straight character actors, with the exception of McAdams and Jason Bateman and Kyle Chandler. They're really the big four here, and then eventually you get Michael C. Hall, who most people know as Dexter. So they're kind of pulling in that energy. But yeah, part of me always bemoans these kinds of movies where I like the characters so much that it's a shame eventually things have to start happening. Because if I had my druthers, it would just be about literal people just having game nights. And all the comedy would just come from that.
I do think there is enough there that you could get that, but I think that what I think is cool about this movie is it parodies genre in a way that's not insulting. Like it embraces genre, right? Um, in a way that, you know, if you got like the sort of scary movie version of this, it would be more joke a minute, and this is still more meant on engrossing you in a reality and these character dynamics. It, you know, it never breaks the fourth wall.
Yeah, I mean,
Or
it enjoys its world building, and bothers to do so. And there is a cinematic element to the movie, but it is ultimately all in service of the characters and the comedy.
yes,
And that all works. If it became overwhelmed by the parody stuff or the style stuff or the action set pieces or whatever, then it would just be run of the mill, you know, something like the movie Date Night or something like the movie Killers or, you know, what have you.
Yeah, I think there's, and that's kind of why I picked this movie, is I do think there is a love of the genre and there's a love of cinema and on display. It could have just been very work for hire, but everybody involved wants it to be a little bit more, and I think that's a lot of fun.
Yeah, and we were talking earlier about how like this is one of the last movies I can remember where they really pushed a comedy in a big way, like a blockbuster comedy with big actors. Like these used to be 12 of these used to come out a year.
Yeah.
Not this in particular movie, but something like this with, you know, a big cast of big actors. This wasn't that long ago. You know, you think of the Apatow comedies or you think of, you know, The Hangover, whatever. There were, and all of their copycats, there were a bunch of comedies every year. They used to come out and sell these big casts, and they might be high concept, they might not be, but it seemed like after a while they just kind of stopped making those. And I remember when this came out, it really felt like if this doesn't do well, this might be it. And it kind of felt like it was for a while. My limited memory, there probably was something along these lines. It's been out since 2018, but
there hasn't been a lot, and typically it gets,
unless it's independent. Yeah, like that's the big difference.
We kind of talked about this at the top of the show, but it tends to get just sort of released direct to streaming now. You know, there's not the sort of faith in this as a cinematic experience. And I have only seen this movie at home, but I think it has a cinematic quality to it that it would have been a lot of fun to watch in theaters. And I think that there is something about that is being lost nowadays.
Right, because even like the best Netflix comedies or the best Hulu originals or whatever, they're good, but they're made for much smaller budgets than this movie, certainly.
And they're not necessarily made for a cinematic experience.
No, they're made for they're made for your phone and your home.
Mm-hmm.
So they don't quite have the scope, they don't quite have the budget, they don't have the ambition that.
Yes, yeah.
You know, you look at like the 21 Jump Street movies that came out, doesn't feel like that long ago. Those movies were huge. Those are blockbusters with big
well, they were
set pieces.
They were action comedies, right? With an emphasis on comedy, but they still had to have the action genre parody stuff that worked cinematically, and I think this is of a similar vein. It has to have the thriller cinematic quality, and even that type of movie, even the movie that this is referencing, isn't necessarily getting the theatrical releases anymore.
No, you think of something like I Care a Lot, right?
Sure. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That would have been, in 2010, that would have been a big in-theater 4 or 5 week, on the box office board kind of movie. Now it's like, has its minute on a streamer, people talk about it and move on.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. Well, that is that. For the next episode, the movie we're going to do for our streaming homework is the 1997 film The Ice Storm, which is directed by Ang Lee. And that is available to watch on HBO Max. If anybody has anything to say about anything we've talked about on this episode or previous, you can find us on social media at MacGuffinPod on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. We are on YouTube. Please look us up. Watch our videos. We've been doing a video version of this podcast. Which
I didn't shower for nothing.
Differ ever so slightly from the edit that I do for the audio. And we have a letterbox as well where I post up all of our homework assignments and sort of what we've been watching. You can keep up with us that way. You can also email us if you have any deeper thoughts at MacGuffinPod@gmail.com. You can follow me individually on Twitter and Instagram at BC Cassidy, and you can read the reviews I do for the Idaho State Journal by Googling Idaho State Journal movie reviews or Idaho State Journal arts and entertainment, and that'll pull that up. And be sure to leave us a 5-star rating and a 1-sentence review on iTunes or Spotify or Google Podcasts, whatever you use to listen to us on. And word of mouth is usually the best metric of growth. So if you know people who are fans of movies, who are on Letterboxd or whatever, let them know that we exist and give us a shout out.
Yes, absolutely. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Keith Foster Kid. You can also see me perform live at mockingbirdimprov.org. I'm a part of a couple shows there, Lyrics and Laughs and Improv versus Stand-Up. So you can go to their website and check out their calendar and come see me at a show.
And that is the episode.
Man, glass tables are acting weird tonight.
Bye.